We are Heather and Paul Christie.
And for over 12 years, we've worked with executives and entrepreneurs to accelerate change in every aspect of their business.
Because we are in the fastest paced business environment that anyone has ever seen before.
So join us for the Evolve to Win show. Hey, and welcome to another Evolve to Win show with Heather and Paul
and Lynette Bailey,
our special guest.
We've got a special guest today. If you have young children, actually any kind of children, the message today is absolutely incredible. We took Lynette and pulled her onto this show because she has such an amazing story of how she gave the gift of freedom to her children and also to yourself, really. I mean, completely. Oh my gosh.
Hey, so hold on one second. I'm going to leave it to you guys.
Oh, okay. You're getting out of here.
And you do this on your own.
We totally understand.
Have a great day.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So let me start off by introducing Lynette Bailey. Lynette is my third cousin, and it's way too much to go into that. In fact, I need a flip chart and a flow chart and everything else to figure it out. But suffice to say, we are distant relatives. And for those of you who know Paul and me well, you will know that we have taken in our third exchange student, this one from Pulaski, Wisconsin, who is Bailey Lardenoy. That is Lynette's daughter. Second daughter in line of 4 daughters.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So that's just a little bit of context about who Lynette is. But now let me tell you a little bit more about why she's on our show. And then I'm going to shut up and let her do a little talking. Okay. So I asked you to come up here this morning on your vacation. So I literally ripped her away from her vacation to share a story about how she prepared her daughters for freedom and specifically financial freedom. And your story is so amazing. And of course, I've gotten to know Bailey better than the rest of them because she's been able to live with us. But let me just say, you've had 2 of your daughters in the last 2 weeks graduate.
Yes.
So Sierra,
crazy.
Who's your oldest, just graduated college. Congratulations, right. Sierra. So proud of you. And Bailey has just graduated from the Next Level Leadership Academy. And so she's headed on to really work on building her business. So congratulations on that. You must be so proud.
Thank you. And I want to say that, yes, there are 4 daughters, but really what we're focusing on today is Sierra and Bailey.
The first 2.
Right, because there is a 10-year gap between the 2. So they're 22 and 20, and then 11 and 10.
So she took a break.
We rested, we recovered. But I haven't gotten to this point yet with Maggie and Reese. Okay. So as much as there are 4 daughters, we still have to see how it works out with the second set.
Yes. And you've learned,
well,
of course,
with the first set.
You've learned from the first 2.
Yes.
But okay, so I want you to take us back to when you made the decision to begin this program and this process for how you helped your children to really understand and manage and become independent financially. How did you, first of all, like the thought process, how did you learn this?
Well, I would love to take credit, but I was listening to Dave Ramsey.
Oh, perfect.
And it was a Dave Ramsey idea that I put into place. I think what was happening, Sierra had just turned 16.
Okay.
And as much as you think parenting-wise, you might have the financial burden when you're worrying about diapers and maybe babysitters. Sierra turned 16 and suddenly this child was asking me for gas money. And I had this real frustration with, did I really just go to work all day so that I can come home and fund gas money? And let's see, she wants to go to the movies and she has another birthday party. So you need to get the birthday gifts.
Oh, God. And birthday parties are probably way more expensive these days.
Not to mention times 4 kids. Mm-hmm. So there's no being fair. It was exhausting. And it was continuous because someone always needs something.
And how do you even know what to say yes to and what to say no to? Because that's going to cause emotional upheaval
completely,
probably constantly.
Completely. And I think based on finances in that moment, when one child is asking you for something, maybe it's a yes in that moment. And then maybe it's something that they would really prefer or would rather have. But now you say no because of whatever the financial situation was.
Yeah.
It was a mess.
It was a mess.
It was a mess. And I was listening to Dave Ramsey, and What he suggested was, and I realized my kids were in the perfect sweet spot for this. They were 16 and 14. What he recommended was figure out what your kids cost you each month, and then you give that to them.
Let me pause for a moment. How many of you who have children actually know how much they cost you each month? Like, I can imagine that that's probably all over the map if you're not otherwise like relentlessly budgeting for this. Which did you know? So when he said figure out what your kids cost you, did you have any idea?
No clue. And you can't let that paralyze you either. So we guessed and we figured we would figure it out if it was wrong. So don't let it paralyze you because there's no way to figure it out. And
how did you guess though, by the way? I mean, did you go through and actually
do you want real numbers?
Not well,
because I get that this varies from place to place in the country and everything else. What we ended up doing was coming up with, I think we started with Sierra at the age of 16, received $200 a month. Bailey was 14, and I think we gave her $160 a month.
Okay.
The $40 difference being Sierra was filling her own gas tank then, and she was doing some running for us, picking up kids.
Okay.
And so that essentially bought her about a tank and a half of gas
per month. Because
this is what we did when we handed over their finances. We still covered food, shelter, and medical expenses.
Okay.
Period.
All right. So I want you guys to get this because we're kind of going, forward and backward here. But the decision that was made was that they were going to give the girls their own budget to manage their own financials. And you covered food, shelter,
medical.
And that's it. So let's talk about some of the things that the girls had to figure out immediately.
Good. It was so good.
Some of you parents out there right now are thinking, oh my gosh, this is brilliant, right? Okay. Give us some examples of how this rolled out and what the girls got to immediately learn about.
I was thinking about this, and as I was, it probably felt overwhelming if you were 16 and 14.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal. This is what they were handed. They were handed real life. And the beauty of it was they were handed real life in a safe environment.
Okay, so that's really key, right?
Because I was just saying to Paul, worst case scenario, the entire thing failed. There was no gas money to put gas in the tank. The big yellow bus still came to the end of the driveway every day.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? You still have a house, you still have food in the cupboard, and you still have any medical expenses taken care of.
So it
was a great place to fail.
Yeah, if they mismanaged their money, which I'm imagining they must have. I mean, I know I probably would have blown through that in the first week. But,
yes and no.
But anyway, they have that safety net, which is very different from when you ship them off to college or
with no training,
or maybe they're just going out to live on their own for the first time and they haven't ever had to manage a budget, or they don't even know what things cost. I know I didn't have a clue.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Until outside of college. Yeah.
So this was the great thing to go back and finish. They were responsible for everything else. So they were responsible for gifts for their friends, shampoo, conditioner, soap, hairspray, toothpaste,
gel, lip makeup,
their own clothing.
They're responsible for their own clothing too.
You know what? Do you want new soccer shoes? I don't care. Whatever. Does it work in your budget? Really, when I thought about it, you want to go to a movie with your friend? I covered food, but that doesn't mean you want to go meet your friend for coffee or ice cream or any of those things. So they figured it out. And I gave them the guidelines of, listen, the top 10% needs to be tithed. The second 10%.
Wait a minute. You gave them the money and they still tithed 10% of that. That's incredible.
Well, in theory, that was my guideline.
Oh, okay.
I did not police or micromanage them in any way, shape, or form.
But that's an amazing lesson.
That was the intention, was that the top 10% was to be tithed. The second 10% was to go into long-term savings.
Okay.
And then you budget and you figure out your life with the other 80%.
All right. So I think that lesson, like in and of itself, is just those first two, give first, pay yourself first, right? 10% for others, 10% for you. And then you learn to live on 80% of your income.
Right.
Like, just think about that lesson as a starting place.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal, because I think a lot of people never really practically learned that lesson. And you're talking about a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old. Okay.
The reason 16 was key was because I realized if they were going to be responsible for getting their own supplies, toiletries, things like that, I didn't want to be running to the store with them each time. So Sierra had the independence to get them there and take care of those things. I remember you talking about how this went. Had we quit on day 2, it would have all been worth it. Because what happened was day 1, they got their first installment. And that was where I had to stay super committed. That was all that was left of my job, was the first of the month.
Yeah.
There was no way I could not come through for them.
Yes.
So that was all that was left for me. But on day 2, so the first month, on day 2, they went to the store for toiletries. Now, life before that looked like, hey, Mom, I'm out of shampoo. And the shampoo fairy arrived by morning. And there was more shampoo waiting. So they went for their toiletries. They came home, they put their little pile of stuff on the kitchen table, and they looked at one another disgusted and said, I can't believe that was $60.
Oh my gosh.
I could have quit that day.
Oh, did you just run around the house doing a happy dance?
Yes, that is $60.
Because for the first time in their lives, they had an appreciation, correct? They had an appreciation for what this stuff cost. And it's not just, hey, I need more of this.
Everything had a value. I asked Sierra a couple months later, I said, how much shampoo did you use back when the shampoo fairy brought it? She's like, oh my gosh, Mom, I used to use like 5 pumps. And 2 pumps is all you need. Everything had a value. And they had such great appreciation.
Oh my gosh.
For what all of those little things that add up, become overwhelming, especially times 4 kids.
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about their mindset during this time, because I imagine that they didn't just fully embrace initially, or maybe they did. Like how did they feel when you said, we're going to do this new program? Did you get them excited about it?
I think initially it was exciting.
Okay.
We all went in unknown. It wasn't like,
you hadn't done it before.
We hadn't done this before.
Yeah.
We did end up staying with those numbers, but we kind of I went in quietly thinking, I don't know if this is the right amount. We'll have to see how it goes. Sierra, who was 16 at the time, she bought her own car. She had gas money. She had her car insurance, all those things. And I remember her being incredibly stressed those first months. Now, granted, she was working a job also. She was not living her life on $200 a month. She was probably making another $300 or $400 per month. But I remember her being incredibly stressed. And I remember her actually asking Bailey at one point, I think, for a loan. Right. And I jumped into the middle of that and I said, no loans. And though I'm glad I did, I wonder now if I would have just stayed out of it completely, because actually it wasn't my money. So there might have been another lesson there that I squashed.
I don't know, possibly a very valuable lesson.
Because again, if you're going to fall, right,
yeah,
that's off the table.
That's off the table.
Budget,
you've got to figure it out.
But hindsight, what has happened with Sierra and her personality is she's a saver. She loves having a big savings account. So no wonder she was uncomfortable in the beginning, because there was no reserve to fall back on. Yeah. And so who cares if you're uncomfortable when you're 16? Again, there's food in the refrigerator.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
they were, really, in a sense, you put some pressure on it. I would imagine, I would guarantee there are people out there right now who are listening to this saying, oh, that's great, that worked out for you, but it would never work out for me because, and then fill in whatever your blank is, right? I'd love to hear what the reasons are that people would come up with why they wouldn't be able to do this. But I'd imagine that some of them are saying, well, you know what, my 16-year-old is also involved in a lot of other extracurricular activities.
This is a parenting moment where your gift to them is to be strong. This is a parenting moment where you do not save them. Because again, where I didn't want my kids to be 25 years old and $25,000 of debt and have no clue how they got there.
Yeah.
These are all manageable things that they can be. Sierra and Bailey had such appreciation all through high school for what things cost. They had the choice. It empowered them because they had the choice. Did they want to buy brand name things or did they, I mean, to this day, Sierra was like, we could get 2 of those dresses at TJ Maxx for the same price. Why would we buy this? You know, they are so smart financially. I'm so proud of them, but it's definitely one of those parenting moments. It reminds me of when you're training your child to sleep. Like, there are times you just have to hold one another and like not let each other go in to save that child. And it's kind of like that. Like it's bigger than saving them in the moment. It's a life gift.
Yes, it is a gift. It is a true gift. And you think about what that did for them and the impact that this has had on Sierra's now, 22? Bailey's 20. Sierra's just graduated last weekend, graduated from college. Can you share with us approximately how much college debt she took on? Yeah, nothing. And why do you think that is?
A full scholarship.
Because she got a full ride. And why do you think she got that full ride? It wasn't just delivered to her because someone knocked at her door and handed it to her. She went out and found it.
Right. Do you know when she was applying for college and scholarships and everything, honestly, I was busy with 3 more kids and little kids. And
you were not even fully aware of how many scholarships she had researched, found,
she did that
and gone
herself.
After. And so she was busy filling out these scholarship applications that I remember at the time you were saying, do you know what Sierra's doing right now? She's applying for scholarships.
Right.
Because, okay, and God, you think about this and how many kids out there are struggling with student loan payments. And guys, this breaks my heart. It really does, because I've suffered through that and it sucked. It sucked. I had 6 figures in law school loans and my parents paid for my college. Like I was so blessed to have parents who supported me so much financially that I said at one point, I want to take on the law school thing because I thought that was the right thing to do. Like, you guys have supported me long enough. And I just took it without having any idea what that even meant. And so I took out the full amount of loans and I came out of law school with 6 figures of debt. And it was, you guys, it was crushing for so many years. And then what that does is it robs you of your personal freedom to do what you want to do. Right. So I remember being stuck in a job at the time that I was just feeling so miserable, so trapped, so uncomfortable. Like it was crushing. And, I don't even think the job in and of itself was that bad, but it was the feeling that I had to have it because I had these loans and I didn't have the freedom of choice. That was killing me. So this is why we're talking about the gift of freedom, because I believe by implementing this strategy that you heard from Dave Ramsey, probably in some random, like they didn't even have podcasts back in that day. So I don't know even how you get your hands on
his CDs in the car.
Yeah, probably listening to the Dave Ramsey CDs. But the fact that you took that on and you made the point of saying, I had to stay committed. So how many times did you have the opportunity to go back on your word and rescue them in some way and pay extra money? Did those times show up?
Probably, but I don't think it was ever that they were necessarily asking. Okay. It was that I could see the turmoil they were feeling and felt a little guilty. And I want to say too, all the excuses about my kids are in sports or whatever else. Bailey was a 3-sport athlete. She played varsity soccer, varsity basketball from freshman year on. She was a 3-sport athlete, but she worked in the summers and she worked on weekends and but
did that get in the way of her schoolwork and her grades?
No.
Okay, so what kind of grades did Bailey pull having 3 sports and a job?
I think she probably only got like a 3.9 or something.
So, I mean, how much, and I think about this, is like, she did. She was unbelievable in school.
Yes.
And I think that in part, it had to do with the fact that you gave them that opportunity to figure out how to be independent at this young age. And did it stress them out? I'm sure it did. I should pull Bailey up here and get her on.
Place. But the other thing I want to say is because they understood finances, Bailey ended up not getting the same scholarship that Sierra did.
Right. She
college
did apply.
was not right. College was not paid for, and therefore she chose to not go to a 4-year college because she did not know well enough what she wanted to do to justify the expense of it.
That's right.
So that was a choice that she made to not just mindlessly go to college because that's what kids are supposed to do. So she came down, moved in with Heather and Paul for the fun adventure of it, and went to massage school. She could have stayed home and gone to massage school anywhere, but this was fun to come to Florida.
And what's really interesting is Bailey was accepted into University of Wisconsin. She was enrolled. She had a roommate. We were waiting on the information about the scholarship, which I think we all thought she had because her grades were phenomenal.
Right. I think honestly, it was because the scholarship had already been given to one child in our family. It was the same $40,000 scholarship that we were kind of waiting on.
Right.
And she had gotten a couple other scholarships, but not enough to cover. And then instead of it being just the thing you do, to go and to sign papers mindlessly and become, in that financial, stressful debt place, she's just doing it a different way.
She is doing it a different way. So what she did instead, as you said, she came down, she went and got her massage therapy certificate outside of massage therapy school, rather than going and working for a massage therapy spa for another company. She decided to learn entrepreneurship because that was, she's all about growing herself. So she, and lucky she's got Paul to work with her constantly, and I've been helping her too. But so she started her own business the day she got out of massage therapy school and got licensed. She's been, okay, so if you've never gotten a massage by Bailey before, Riverstone Massage and Reflexology, she's chosen her target market. She's set up her company. She's set up her QuickBooks. I mean, she is learning with that certificate how to be an entrepreneur. And while this is for me, it's so heartwarming to know that, while she's watching her friends, go through college and her sister graduate and all of those people in her world who are coming out of college now and getting their jobs, some of them are finding their true passion and others are really feeling stuck and they're going to work for minimum wage jobs because they don't know exactly what they want to do. Meanwhile, Bailey's pulling $70 an hour in her business that goes 100% to her, and she's learning how to manage it. And it's mind blowing what she's been able to create. And I really, truly believe that it goes back to when she was 14 and you gave her that gift of the freedom to know how to do it. You're going to make me cry because you're starting to tear up. But it really is incredible that both of them have learned to do things in a way that really supports them. So what's the level of stress right now for them? It's not financial.
Right. Completely. And, I think the biggest thing just is I thought I was giving myself freedom. I lived all those years without anyone asking me for money, which I know is a daily thing times X number of children for the majority of parents. And so I guarantee I went into it all selfishly. But the gift that it gave them, the way it empowered them to make their own choices and really just expanded their understanding of finances and what their priorities were, really, it turns out it was a win-win.
It was a total win-win. And I do love that it also gave you that freedom of not having to choose every single time you were asked for something, whether or not you would give. And is it the right thing to do, the wrong thing to do? You took all of those potential arguments off the table. I was
going to say, God forbid any of those 4 kids were keeping track.
Right.
Of what
someone else got.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Because
So
I wasn't keeping track.
If Maggie and Reese get to watch this, you guys know what's coming, right? The younger two,
Totally.
I'm sure will be looking forward to their financial freedom as well. But the great news is you've got 2 older siblings that will share with their younger sisters how awesome it really was to have those lessons and to be able to manage. Now, here's the other thing. They had money that came to them every month and they got to use it however they saw fit. So they were able to really manage what they did and where they went out and how they had fun and all of this. So that's kind of cool too, to have that independence.
Can you imagine? I was thinking about that too. Can you imagine having to ask somebody for money every time you wanted to do something?
I know.
I mean, you might be 17 or 18 and still,
or 25 or 35 or 55.
I suppose there's that too.
Right. Still asking.
Yeah. I can't imagine having to ask someone for money when I want to do something.
Yeah.
So they were free from that too, because I think there were times they probably knew enough of what was going on in the house or felt stress that there was probably something they wanted and would never have asked.
Right. Yeah. You know, this whole conversation about the freedom that is generated, I think is such a powerful conversation. And, you know, we never had children, so we certainly cannot be the authority on how to raise your children, but I know I can always pull you on for that. I just know that from the minute that I heard this story about how they were on their own with their own budgets, I was blown away. I was envious even of what they got to learn and just how they got to experience their teenage years. And although, yes, I can imagine at the time if I put myself in their shoes and all of a sudden, I've got a budget and how much I wouldn't like that, what you get to do with that when that becomes your reality is pretty powerful.
Yes,
oh my gosh.
completely.
And the lessons that you brought through for them all the way through. The one thing that I know about both of your girls is they truly have that sense of independence where they do not feel like they have to rely upon anyone to make it. So God, you go, girls.
The goal.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
Lynette, thank you so much for sharing your story for everybody and being on our Facebook Live on our Evolve to Win show. It's been so super having you here for Bailey's graduation, and I always love hanging out with you. And thanks to Karin, who is the one who ultimately got us together out in Sweden. So we'll give you a shout out in case you're watching too.
And Bill Nelson.
Or we would not be, and Bill Nelson, right? Or we wouldn't be here together. So thanks everybody. I hope you have an awesome week. Thanks for tuning in to the Evolve to Win show. Take care.
Thanks for having me.